Welcome back to my channel. Hello, my dear students. I'm meeting you after a long gap due to some reasons. So, once again, I'm back with another very important topic for NEET, that is photoperiodism and vernalization. Before I start with the topic, those who have joined my session newly, you have joined just this session, you have to subscribe my channel. Please subscribe my channel so that you will be getting all the notifications for my future videos, and they will be very helpful, and I also encourage your feedback. So thank you very much. Please share to maximum extent and subscribe so that it will be useful to you as well as to your friends. So let us come to the topic. Very important topic for NEET. So previously, last NEET and other previous NEET exams, the question was asked on photoperiodism. So here we'll be discussing in detail about what is the photoperiodism and its mechanism. So photoperiodism, first if we go through what is the definition of photoperiodism, it is duration of day and night on flowering. That is called as a photoperiodism. And photoperiod is required to induce flowering. Photoperiod means duration of day or duration of even night also, both, which is required for flowering. That is called as critical day length. Critical day length. Here I am representing it as CDL, critical day length. Normally, in general, it can be taken as 10 to 14 hours. That is the critical day length. That means that critical day length is essential for induction of flowering. And based on this photoperiod, the plants are divided into three types: short day plants, long day plants, and day neutral plants. So first, if we take short day plants, here flowering is induced when exposed to 8 to 10 hours. That means earlier we have seen the critical day length as 10 to 14 hours. So here we find flowering is induced less than the critical day length. If it is less than the critical day length, such plants are categorized as short day plants. So their critical day length is less than, they require less than, the time required for them or duration required is less than the critical day length. And these plants are also, they are also called as long night plants. That means the night time should be more for these plants to induce flowering. So such plants are called short day plants, or they are also called long night plants. Now the second category are called as long day plants. Long day plants. Long day plants are those where flowering is induced when they are exposed to more than the critical day length. Here critical day length we have a generalized as 10 to 14 hours. So here more than the critical day length. That is called, that is the duration here is 14 to 16 hours. That is the duration required. That means it is more than critical day length, and such plants are called as long day plants. Third category are day neutral plants. Day neutral plants are not affected by the day length at all. They are not affected. So in nature, suppose we want to identify, in nature we want to identify which is a short day plant or long day plant or a day neutral plant. So very clearly we can identify short day plants are those which flower during winter. They flower during winter. Normally winter we find the long nights are present and days are short. So short day plants generally in nature we find they flower during winter. Long day plants are those which flower during summer in natural conditions. In summer, those flowers like jasmine and many other, we find the flowering during summer. I'll be giving you some more examples in my next topic. So long day plants are those which flower during summer. Day neutral plants, how do we identify? Day neutral plants are those which flower throughout the year. They are not dependent upon season, whether winter or summer. They flower throughout the year. They are called as day neutral plants. That is, these are not affected by any day length. Now this is the introduction which I have given. Now let us go through some of the details in case of photoperiodism. So first, discovery. So how was it discovered, or the scientists? The term photoperiodism was given by Garner and Allard. They first introduced the term photoperiodism, and they studied photoperiodism in one mutant variety of tobacco, that is Maryland mammoth variety. That is a mutant variety of tobacco plant. And what did they observe? They observed that this plant produced flowers in winter but not in summer. Not in summer. It started producing flowers only in winter. So based on that, they categorized, Garner and Allard categorized the plants into 3 groups. That's what just we have discussed: short day, long day, and day neutral plants. So here I'll be giving you some examples of these. So short day plants are those, what did we define as? They do not exceed critical day length. That means they flower within the critical day length. They require shorter than the critical day length. Like for example, in case of xanthium. In case of xanthium, critical day length is 15 hours. So its flowering time is below 15 hours. It will never cross 15 hours. So it is flowers below 15 hours of duration of length. And critical day length varies from one plant species to the other. One plant species to the other, it can vary. No two plants will have the same critical day length. Even though they may belong to short day plants or long day plants, they have different critical day length. But the plants which flower below the critical day length, they are categorized as short day plants. So the critical day length varies from one plant species to the other. And short day plants are also called as long night plants. These are also called as long night plants. Now some examples: tobacco, bryophyllum, xanthium, chrysanthemum, rice, sugarcane, potato, soya bean. Scientific name is glycine max, aster, dahlia, Forbitis nil. This is commonly called Japanese morning glory. Examples are very, very important, children. You have to remember the examples of these different types of plants. Examples generally are asked in previous NEET exams also. The examples are asked. So it's very important to remember and learn these examples. So try to learn the scientific names also wherever it is. Like tobacco, you should know what is the scientific name. Sugarcane, rice, potato, soya bean. Soya bean already I gave, glycine max. Dahlia and aster, these are the scientific names. Then Forbitis. So all these names you should definitely learn. Now next, long day plants. Long day plants, here when they are exposed to more than the critical day length, they require light more than the critical day length, they are called as long day plants. And they are also called short night plants because they require a very short duration of dark period or night. That means these should have uninterrupted light. Long day plants to flower should have uninterrupted light. Similarly, short day plants should have uninterrupted darkness. Uninterrupted darkness. That means darkness should not be interrupted by light there. Similarly, uninterrupted light is this light period in these plants should not be interrupted by dark. So that's why these are called short night plants, and short day plants are called as long night plants. Children, it's very important to remember these terms. Terminology is very, very important here. So next I'll give you what are the examples. Examples of long day plants. Examples of long day plants. So what the examples? Barley, sugar beet. Sugar beet means beetroot. Henbane, Hyoscyamus niger. Scientific name is Hyoscyamus niger. Then wheat, radish, oats, spinach, lettuce. So all these are examples of long day plants. I'll give you some examples of day neutral plants also. 3 examples you should know. I will just write it here. You can note it down. Day neutral plants, you can take the examples of tomato, maize, and cucumber. Tomato, maize and cucumber. These you can take examples for day neutral plants. Now let us see what is the mechanism of photoperiodism. How exactly the plants can depend upon light. What is its mechanism and how does it induce flowering? So here the most important is light, perception of light, how plants receive light. And when plants receive light, the vegetative phase of the plants, vegetative phase is converted into reproductive phase. So shoot apices, they transform into flowering apices just before flowering. So once the reproduction has to start, that means once the vegetative growth is completed, then some changes will take place. Hormonal changes will take place. These hormonal changes are induced by light. That's what we describe it as a photoperiodism. So plants require particular inductive period of light, particular duration of light. So when they are exposed to particular duration of light, then they synthesize a particular specific flowering hormone that induces flowering. So here shoot apices, they transform into flowering apices just before flowering, and shoot apices cannot themselves perceive light. Directly, the light cannot be absorbed by shoot apex and it cannot get transformed. So what happens? How the transformation occurs? First, light is received by leaves. They synthesize a hypothetical hormone. This hormone is called hypothetical hormone because it is not yet established. Its structure and all is not yet studied. This hypothetical hormone is named as florigen. This hypothetical hormone is named as florigen. And this hormone from leaves it is transferred to shoot apex. Then shoot apex is converted into flowering region or flowering apices. This is how it is. This was once asked the question that which part actually receives light. So you have to give as the leaf actually receives that stimulus. That is which stimulus? It is the light stimulus, and that synthesizes this hormone which transforms shoot apex into flowering region. Now, there are some conditions which we can discuss here. How these leaves can actually help in say inducing or synthesizing the hormone. Some conditions if we take, even if there is a single leaf present in a plant, single leaf, it is sufficient to receive light stimulus. So just the single leaf also will be sufficient to receive the light and synthesizes the hormone, transferring it into shoot apex. Partially mature leaf is more potent than mature or senescent leaf. If it is a partially mature leaf, that means little young leaf, little mature leaf, partially mature, more potent, it is more capable of receiving light stimulus. Leafless plant cannot perceive any photostimulus. If the leaves are removed, then the plant cannot flower. Flowering cannot take place in such plant. So these are very important points with respect to the presence of leaves, how they help in flowering, how they receive the light stimulus and thus help in the flowering. Now let us see what is exactly the mechanism and what is the role of this pigment called as phytochrome in flowering. Phytochrome, the term was introduced by Butler. The scientist Butler introduced the term phytochrome. Phytochrome is a universal pigment. It is a light sensitive pigment made up of glycoprotein. Chemically it is made up of glycoprotein and it can receive light. It can absorb light. Apart from flowering, phytochrome has various other role also, like it is involved in seed germination, and it is also involved in say germination of pollen, or unfolding of leaves, or differentiation of stomata. So it is also involved in various other physiological activities other than only flowering. The most important its other role is explained in seed germination. Seed germination mainly in lettuce it is studied. Seed germination in lettuce it is studied. So I will just write it here. What are its other roles of this phytochrome? Other roles. Other roles you can give in seed germination, folding of leaves, and differentiation of stomata, differentiation of stomata, that means formation of structure, development of stomata, and it is also involved in pollen germination, also involved in pollen germination, and in some cases it is also involved in elongation of petiole, stem, etc. Elongation of petiole and elongation of stem. So it has another role in other physiological activities other than the flowering. So now let us see what is its role in flowering. So if we take the phytochrome, this pigment, light sensitive pigment, it exists in two interconvertible forms, PR and PFR. PR means red region. It can absorb red light. PR form can absorb red light. And then it is converted into PFR. PFR, far red light of this wavelength. This is 680 and 730 nanometers. So in this wavelengths, these forms can absorb. So when PR form absorbs red light, that means of P680, it is converted into PFR. Similarly, PFR, when it absorbs far red light, that means the wavelength of 730, it is transferred to, it is changes to PR. So both are interconvertible in red and far red light. PR is inactive form, and this PR form, it is inducing flowering in short day plants. It is normally present in cytoplasm also. This PR form, it is present in cytoplasm. And PFR form, it is attached to membrane. Of the leaf, cell membrane in the leaves. And here this is found in cytoplasm. Now PFR is the active form, and that is required for flowering in long day plants. So PR form will induce flowering in short day plants. PFR form will induce flowering in long day plants. So PR form can absorb red light and is converted to PFR. PFR will absorb far red light and is converted to PR. Now simple other ratio which we can see, suppose we can represent in this way also. PR by PFR, this ratio, if this is greater than 1, that means flowering in short day plants. Similarly, PFR by PR greater than 1, this is flowering in long day plants. So due to presence of, or due to this light stimulus, when phytochrome receives light, I was discussing, a hypothetical hormone is synthesized, that is called as a florigen. That florigen, which is synthesized in leaves, it is transported to the shoot apex, and shoot apex it is converted, that shoot apex is transformed to say flowering apex, floral bud. Okay, now florigen, if we take chemically, it is made up of gibberellic acid, that is gibberellin, plus anthracene. This is another hormone, hypothetical hormone. Gibberellin and anthracene, it is a combination of these two hormones. That is a florigen. Okay, now let us see Diagrammatically, I will give you how we can understand the process of flowering. Diagrammatically. Again, this diagrammatically, it is very, very important for examination point of view. So, short day plants. First, let us observe the diagrams of all short day plants, and then we can compare with the long day plants. So, first I'll explain about short day plants. So, short day plants, first thing, the daytime is required, less daytime, short day, long night. So when short days are pleasant, long nights are present, it is inducing flowering. This is first case, first condition. Second condition. Second condition, when night time is interrupted by white light, when we introduce white light during night time, there is no flowering because night time is interrupted. There should be uninterrupted dark period here. So white light. Third condition, when night time is affected by red light. So when night time is affected by red light, what happens? In presence of red light, we find PR is converted to PFR. So when PR is converted to PFR, again we don't find any flowering in case of short day plants. Now next condition, fourth condition, if we take, if night time is interrupted by far red light, far red, we find what happens when they absorb far red light. In case of far red light, PFR will be converted into PR. This happens in far red light. So when PFR is converted into PR, we find there is a flowering because PR form can induce flowering in short day plants. Next condition, fifth condition, if we take, in fifth condition, first during night time it is exposed to red light and then far red. So because next time it is exposed to far red light, second time, same as the previous one, we find flowering, same as the previous one. Now in the last case, if we take, in the last case, we find it is first interrupted by red light, then far red light, again red light. Last it is treated with red light, interrupted by red light. So we don't find any flowering here. These diagrams are also very, very important, children. You have to write it, you have to draw it on your own, or whatever way you do, you have to learn these diagrams. Diagrammatic question also you can expect. Now the same thing, let us compare for a long day plant. Long day plant, we require long days and short night. So when long day and short night are present, we can see flowering. Second case, night time, if interrupted by white light, just opposite we find. If you keep comparing, you will find just opposite. So night time, when it is interrupted by white light, there is flowering. Then third case, night time when it is interrupted by red light. So red light, what happens? PR is converted into PFR. So when PFR is present, that will induce flowering in long day plants. So here we find flowering. Next, if we take night time, it is interrupted by far red light. Far red light, what happens? PFR will be converted into PR. PFR is converted into PR. PR cannot induce flowering in long day plants. So we don't find any flowering, no flowering here. In next case, red light followed by far red light. Again far red light, we don't find any flowering. Last case red light, far red and then followed by red light. So we find again flowering. This is in the last case. Last case we find red, far red and again red. So last it is exposed to red light. So there will be flowering. This is how we can understand long day and short day plants comparatively through a diagram. So learn the diagram very well. Now that completes the topic of photoperiodism. Now a small topic, let us consider what is vernalization first of all. So the term vernalization was given by the scientist Lysenko. It is phenomenon in which flowering in some plants quantitatively and qualitatively depend on low temperature. So plants vernalization means plants must be subjected to low temperature so that it can induce flowering. That is called as a vernalization. So this can be a quantitative or qualitative exposure to low temperature. Quantitative means very low temperatures. Qualitative, what is the temperature, how much of temperature. Quantity, what is the duration. So both quantitatively and qualitatively it is dependent upon low temperature. So in nature we find the plants must be exposed to winter. In winter we find very low temperatures. So some plants must be exposed to winter and then they can start flowering. So what is the use of this? The use is, in nature it prevents precocious reproductive development. Precocious means early reproductive development in the growing season. So a plant has to complete its vegetative growth and then it can start reproducing. So for proper vegetative growth and for reproductive development, vernalization is very important. So it prevents precocious reproductive development. Precocious means very early reproductive development. The examples we find, it is described here by taking annuals. Annuals like wheat, rye, barley. All these plants will have two varieties, winter variety and spring variety. So they must be planted accordingly. Suppose we take spring varieties. You know spring season. Spring season comes just before summer. So in spring varieties, if they are planted in spring, they come to flower and produce grains before the growing season. Before the growing season means almost before the end of that year. But these do not require vernalization and they are very low yielding. These generally can grow even without exposure to that. But what happens? The spring varieties give very low yielding. There are winter varieties. These winter varieties, here these plants will have both the varieties, spring variety as well as winter variety. So spring variety will give very low yield because it is not exposed to low temperature. And winter varieties, they are planted, suppose they are planted in spring season just like the spring varieties. Then what happens? They do not flower, they fail to flower and they do not produce any grains in that year at all. In first year they do not produce any grains. If they fail to flower, then what will happen? They grow vegetative only. They show only vegetative growth through the summer and then followed by next winter and then next spring. That means if we start in this year, spring, it will show vegetative growth till next spring. That means 2020 spring if you start, it will show vegetative growth up to 2021 spring. And after that, it will show flowering in the second year and then the grain production. So that means it will take more than 1 year to give yield. So what should be done? We want an early yield. A farmer cannot wait for the yield for 2 years for any say such food crops. So he needs the yield within that season. Within the growing season he needs the yield. So what should be done? So these winter varieties should be planted in autumn season. Autumn season is one which comes just before winter. And then it passes through the winter, then come out as seedling, it grows in spring season, finally it can be harvested in midsummer. So within a span of about 6 months here, the farmer can get yield if the winter varieties are planted in autumn. But if winter varieties are planted in the spring season, just like the previous case which we have done, it may take more than 1 year to get the yield. Now biennials also they are subjected to vernalization. These are monocarpic. Monocarpic means they flower only once in their lifetime. So these are monocarpic. And they subjecting them to low temperature will induce flowering in growing season. That means when what are monocarpic, what happens in biennials? In first year they show vegetative growth, and in the second year they show reproduction. So suppose these plants are subjected to low temperature in first year itself. In first year itself, suppose they are subjected to low temperature, then we can find they show reproduction and then they may give yield. Like we have some examples of biennials, like we can take the examples of cabbage or beetroot, cauliflower. So different vegetables, we can take the examples, even carrot. So all these are biennials. Now next is, what is the site of vernalization? Where exactly the plant receives the low temperature? So embryo, in seed embryo will receive, then shoot tips, root tips, developing leaves, all these can receive low temperature. Then what is the importance of vernalization? Vernalization can be done even by artificial methods also. Plant can be subjected to low temperatures by artificial method in order to reduce the lifespan of the plant or reduce the vegetative growth of the plant. Now, what is the importance? Help shortening of vegetative period. So when we shorten the vegetative period, the yield can be increased. So it increases the yield resistant to cold and disease. Gibberellins can replace requirement of vernalization. Suppose the plant is not exposed to low temperature, but if we treat it with gibberellins, then it can induce flowering. So gibberellins also will show similar effect to that of vernalization. Vernalin, a hormone similar to florigin, is synthesized here. It is involved here. It is synthesized in older leaves and transferred to flowering region. So this is what, children, a brief account of photoperiodism and vernalization. This is very, very important for NEET exam point of view. So study very well and then note it down properly. You first should write it down if you find any other important points, anything. Otherwise, you can keep listening, because this is a video session. You can just listen and then try to understand also, so that saves your time. You listen once or twice. That will help you to remember. So with this, I conclude my session, children, here. So have a good day. Please, if you have not yet subscribed my channel, subscribe. Why I am telling you is, you will get lot of help by listening to different videos. In all my coming videos, I'll be continuing with physiology. Especially, I'll start with photosynthesis in my next video. Thank you very much, children. Have a good day.